The first time Commander Derran Ryker stepped onto the observation deck of the Ghalari flagship Vorash-Ul, he was limping. Not from the war, he hadn't been near a battlefield in over a year, but from a slip on a wet stairwell back on Earth. The irony wasn't lost on him. Galactic peace talks, a probable interspecies conflict on the table, and humanity's representative had a sprained ankle from a janitor's oversight at Langley. He adjusted his footing and stared out the transparent alloy dome that overlooked the vast stretch of the neutral zone. Dozens of ships hovered in formation, engines humming like distant thunder. Most were Ghalari, a few were from the Zyphari collective, and one ship, unassuming but bristling with electromagnetic jamming pods and kinetic rail turrets, flew Earth's flag. The USS Winston Carter. "Commander Ryker," came a voice, not a greeting, a summoning. He turned to face High Strategist Veltrax of the Ghalari Union. Veltrax was tall, pale lavender-skinned, and armored in ceremonial plating that looked more for show than defense. The alien's eyes blinked vertically. "You are late." "I'm early," Derran said. "You moved the meeting up without telling anyone, correct, to test your readiness." "Then I passed." Veltrax narrowed his eyes. "You limp." "I fell. You are fragile." Derran didn't argue. "And yet, here I am." Veltrax gestured toward the central console. The room dimmed and a holographic sphere flickered into existence. It was the contested system. 12 planets, 2 habitable, and 1 asteroid belt rich with ignium and energy source both the Ghalari and Zyphari wanted. Humanity was technically neutral, but the Ghalari had invited Earth to observe. Observe, in diplomatic speak, meant pick a side. Veltrax tapped a clawed finger on the 3rd planet. "Zyphari have established a listening post here. They will not leave. We are preparing a strike operation." Derran folded his arms. "Have you tried asking them to leave?" Veltrax blinked again. "We are not a species of diplomacy?" "No kidding," the strategist turned to him. "We have studied your historical conflicts. You are erratic, unpredictable, self-destructive, and yet you win more often than logic allows." "Sometimes we lose," Derran said, "and when we do, we learn." Veltrax tilted his head. "We wish to understand your tactics, a single demonstration, then we will proceed as needed." Derran felt the weight of that phrasing. "You want to see how Earth fights?" "No, we wish to see how Earth thinks." Derran took a breath. "Fine, give me a simulation room, I'll bring my team." "You will not require them, we want only you." He hesitated. "All right. But you're not going to like it." The simulation deck was circular, lined with motion capture emitters and a massive 3D grid. A Ghalari technician handed Derran a control interface. It was clunky, heavy, and clearly not made with human ergonomics in mind. He powered it on. "This sim got destructible environments. Yes, your objective is to eliminate a Zyphari incursion force attempting to secure the ignium mines on asteroid 7 Kappa. Any civilians?" Veltrax answered from behind the glass, arms folded. "No, this is a military-only scenario." "Good. Let's begin." The grid lit up. The asteroid's surface appeared in full detail along with the Zyphari force, 2 cruisers, 4 drop ships, and dozens of ground troops. Derran studied the terrain, jagged, low gravity, minimal cover. He requested a standard human deployment, then paused. "Actually, give me 2 mining rigs, 5 cargo drones, and 1 obsolete scout ship." Veltrax looked over at the technician. "Is this error?" "No," Derran said. "It's a tactic." The simulation began. The Ghalari observers watched in silence as Derran deployed the mining rigs not to dig, but to collapse tunnels. He used the cargo drones as mobile decoys, emitting false thermal signatures. The old scout ship was jury-rigged into a kamikaze, set to detonate above the Zyphari command post using its reactor core. When the virtual dust cleared, the Zyphari forces were eliminated. Not through overwhelming firepower, but through misdirection, sabotage, and terrain manipulation. Derran hadn't fired a single shot until the final minute. Veltrax stared at the display, unmoving. "I improvised," Derran said, lowering the controller. It's what we do. Your own units were destroyed. They were never meant to survive, they were tools. Veltrax's throat fluttered. You sacrificed half your assets. I sacrificed machines, not people. If there were civilians involved, I would have done it differently. Veltrax turned and left without a word. The next day, Derran was summoned back to the observation deck. This time, he wasn't limping. Veltrax stood next to a transmission panel. You will speak with Admiral Ghalari of the Zyphari. He has requested it. Derran raised an eyebrow. I thought we were at the brink of war. Apparently, he watched the simulation. The screen activated. Ghalari appeared tall, six-eyed, and arrayed in crimson armor. His tone was clipped. I surrender. Derran blinked. Excuse me, we watched your demonstration. Your species is unstable, irrational, and terrifyingly adaptive. We cannot predict your methods. We will not risk escalation. Veltrax stared at the screen. You cannot be serious. I am. I am advising all Zyphari naval commands to stand down, effective immediately. The screen went dark. Veltrax looked at Derran. What did you do? I showed you how we solve problems. Veltrax turned to the technician. Open a channel to all Ghalari commanders. I want them to see this. 3 days later, the Ghalari Union received a report. Every single admiral in the Zyphari fleet had submitted identical statements. Immediate ceasefire, full withdrawal from contested systems, and a formal request for Earth-mediated settlement. At first, the Ghalari assumed it was some kind of mass deception, but the pattern was too consistent. The Zyphari had truly given up, not from weakness, from fear. Commander Derran Ryker, who had once been passed over for command due to his improvisational style, was now Earth's most requested military advisor. He didn't celebrate. He didn't hold press conferences. He returned to Earth quietly, took a week off, and finally went to a doctor for his ankle. It's not broken, the nurse told him, just a grade 2 sprain. I figured, he said, but I've had worse, she laughed. What were you doing when it happened? Something stupid, he said. Slipped on water. Right before I scared an entire alien species into surrender, she blinked. Wait, what? He smiled. Never mind, just wrap it tight. I've got another briefing in 48 hours. 32 hours after the simulation, Derran Ryker found himself in a narrow, angular room that smelled faintly of ozone and sterilizing mist. The Ghalari called it a recovery chamber, but it had more in common with a submarine brig than any Earth medical facility. The walls pulsed with slow, bioluminescent rhythms, and the single reclining pod he was instructed to sit in adjusted its angle every few minutes, whether he liked it or not. A circular iris at the far end hissed open. A Ghalari stepped in, draped in a shimmering coat that flickered according to his movement. His face was longer than Veltrax's, with ridged folds above each eye that twitched independently. He carried no weapons, but his gait suggested command. You are the human tactician, he said, rolling the last word like it tasted sour. Derran Ryker. And you are Derran of the 9th Cognition. I oversee strategic doctrine for the Eastern Spiral Arm. You were summoned for evaluation. I was told this was a medical checkup. Derran blinked his upper eye pair. You were observed collapsing during post-mission debrief. I leaned against a wall. The wall was not designed to support organic mass. It groaned. Derran lowered himself back into the recliner. Maybe the wall should hit the gym. Derran did not acknowledge the joke. Your physiology is under question. You exhibit erratic metabolic responses. Elevated cortisol, disrupted sleep cycles, and a high intake of a substance you call caffeine. I was awake for 29 hours. That's normal where I come from. Your normal is statistically unsustainable. A small panel near the recliner opened with a hiss, revealing a set of translucent probes. One extended toward Derran's forearm. Easy, he said. You're not going to inject anything, are you? It will extract only. This system is calibrated for non-lethal hemoplasmic sampling. That's the least comforting way to say blood test I've ever heard. The probe touched his skin. There was a quick sting. Derran studied the readout, his left eye twitching. You have residual ligament trauma in your lower limb, still healing. You refused standard regenerative intervention because your regen gel triggers inflammation in human tissue. Then why did you not request a compatible alternative? I used ice and elevation. Derran recoiled slightly. Primitive, effective. Another Ghalari entered the chamber. This one was smaller with a yellow-tinted exosuit and a data slab clutched in both hands. He approached Derran and spoke in a series of hisses and clicks. Derran nodded once. Your simulation has triggered secondary responses across 8 command sectors, Derran said. The Zyphari have not only withdrawn, they are undergoing internal reevaluation of their doctrine. Several captains have defected. Derran raised an eyebrow. To who? To no one. They are simply leaving. Derran turned the slab toward him. This is not typical. The screen displayed footage. Zyphari soldiers abandoning posts, disabling their own surveillance satellites, even deconstructing drop ships to prevent reuse. One had apparently buried his armor in a desert and walked into the wind. You think they're trying to imitate us? No, we believe they fear becoming you. That's worse. Derran paced, hands clasped. We expected resistance, not psychological contagion. Derran leaned forward. You didn't bring me here just to poke my arm and show me video clips. What do you want? The chamber dimmed. A third Ghalari entered, this one cloaked in deep maroon with a metal crest affixed to the back of his head. His movements were rigid, ceremonial. He stopped 2 steps from Derran and extended a thin tablet. You are being offered a role, he said. Advisor to the Union's High Conclave, tactical oversight, human methodology integration. Derran didn't take the tablet. I'm not giving you our playbook. We do not want your methods, the cloaked figure said. We want your thinking. That's the part you can't replicate. Then instruct us. Derran stood, ignoring the twinge in his ankle. Before I agree to anything, I want one thing made clear. If you're asking for help with defense, fine. If you're asking me to give you an edge to start a fight, I walk. Derran's eyes narrowed. We do not start wars. You just don't call them wars. The chamber was silent. Eventually, Derran spoke again. You are difficult to categorize. That's not a bug, it's the feature. They left him alone after that. The iris closed. The recliner adjusted again, this time tilting him backward without warning. He sighed and stared up at the ceiling. A soft pulse of light moved across it, mimicking something like a heartbeat, though definitely not his. Several hours later, a Ghalari technician returned, this one silent, and handed him a black band to wear around his wrist. It hummed once when he snapped it on. What is this? Authorization marker. You are cleared for limited movement aboard the Vorash Ul. Observation decks, simulation labs, and 1 commissary. I assume the food isn't labeled, correct. But the blue cubes are non-toxic. Comforting. He stepped out into the corridor, which branched like a spider web. The walls here were matte, pulsing with internal temperature readings he couldn't read. Other Ghalari passed by, giving him wide berth. One even turned around and went the other way upon seeing him. In the commissary, he found a single human-compatible terminal. The interface was clunky, but it accepted voice input. Open Earth Net Relay, text only, send to Langley Command, a flicker. Then, connection buffered. He typed, still alive, they want me to teach them how we think. Working theory, they're scared of our improvisation. Also, they think caffeine is an instability vector. Request resupply. He hesitated, then added, P.S. I'm not eating the blue cubes. He leaned back, watching the relay buffer. Behind him, a group of Ghalari officers entered, speaking in low tones. One of them, younger and less composed, approached cautiously. You are the one who made the Zyphari dissolve a battalion with a mining rig. That's me. The officer's eyes jittered. Can you do it again? Derran turned. Depends, you got any more mining rigs? The officer hesitated. No. Then probably not. The officer remained. What if I gave you a torpedo, a broken docking clamp, and a live comms channel to a hostile cruiser? Derran blinked. That oddly specific. I ran a scenario. It failed. Show me. They walked to the sim lab. The interface was in Ghalari, but the young officer navigated it with practiced ease. Derran watched the scenario unfold. A crippled station, one torpedo, and a cruiser demanding surrender. He paused it. Okay, you're thinking too linearly. You're treating the torpedo as a weapon. What if it's bait? I don't understand. Good, that's the first step. He restructured the scenario, connected the torpedo to a broadcast loop, fed a false telemetry trail, set the clamp to fail under minimal stress. At the end of the sim, the hostile cruiser vented half its deck chasing a phantom energy spike, and the station powered up escape thrusters unnoticed. The young officer stared at the readout. You lied to it. I misled it. That is the same. No, it's worse. There was a pause. I want to try again, the officer said. You will, but not with a torpedo next time. Bring me a mop, a thermal blanket, and a broken translator. The officer blinked rapidly. That's not a weapon set. It is if you're creative. He turned back to the terminal. The relay still hadn't gone through. He powered it off. He didn't need their reply yet. He was busy. The Ghalari training hall wasn't designed for humans. The ceiling was low enough that Derran had to duck under one of the archways, and the artificial gravity fluctuated ever so slightly with each shift of the floor's pressure plates, like walking across a trampoline that only bounced when you weren't looking. It was past the fourth cycle, something like early evening, though the ship never dimmed and he'd been summoned for what the Ghalari described as cognitive reckoning drills. He found Derran standing beside a translucent console, his long fingers tapping through holographic files that flicked between war simulations, historical footage, and something that looked suspiciously like an old Earth sitcom. Derran didn't ask. You're late, Derran said, not looking up. I stopped at the lab, that officer with the torpedo scenario. He built a new one using only a door frame, a malfunctioning gravity anchor, and an apology letter. Did it work? Too well. We had to reboot the sim twice just to stop the cruiser from surrendering before seeing the station. Derran flicked the console off. This is the problem. With creativity, with you, Derran stepped forward. Is this an intervention? The conclave has reviewed your influence. Our officers now attempt deception before strategy. They question orders. One commander disguised his fleet as asteroid debris and accidentally collided with a civilian freighter. That sounds like a training issue. They claimed it was a Derran-style feint. He rubbed his temple. I've become a verb. We require containment. What does that mean exactly? You will instruct a limited cadre. No more open simulations. No more cross-branch dissemination. The contagion of your logic must be moderated. Derran sat on the bench near the wall. It hissed and adjusted to his weight. I'm not a virus. No, but your methods are contagious. They bypass structure. Maybe the structure wasn't that strong to begin with. Derran stepped away, his gait tight. We do not need to dismantle our culture to adapt. No, Derran said, but you do need to stop pretending that your culture isn't already shifting. I didn't do that. Your officers did. Derran turned slowly. You say this with pride. No, with warning. I didn't come here to break your systems. But if the only reason your structure holds is because no one asks questions, then it's already broken. There was a long silence. Finally, Derran gestured toward the corridor. Follow. You have been assigned to a scenario chamber. 5 candidates. No observers. They walked in silence, passing rows of sealed doors marked with Ghalari glyphs. The corridor narrowed, then opened into a chamber Derran hadn't seen before. It was spherical, with seats embedded along the walls and a floor that rotated beneath translucent tiles. 5 Ghalari stood waiting, all younger, none in ceremonial armor. One had a thermal wrap around his left arm, still faintly glowing. This session will focus on human improvisation under medical stress, Derran said. Derran blinked. You want me to teach tactics while injured? We have reviewed your medical files. You perform best while compromised. That's called adrenaline. That's called recklessness. Derran stepped into the center. Fine, let's do this. Scenario, the lights shifted. A holo map unfolded above them. An orbital station with failing life support, a hull breach, and 2 incoming vessels, one friendly, one unknown. The station had limited comms, no weapons, and a medical bay with only one functioning injector. One of the candidates spoke first. "We would evacuate and leave the medical bay. It is not tactically valuable." Derran turned to Urien. "You see the problem?" Urien didn't respond. He looked back at the candidate. "Let me reframe it. There's a patient in that bay, unconscious. You leave, they die. They are not essential personnel. They are a person." The candidate hesitated. Another, smaller Ghalari stepped forward. "Then we engage the unknown vessel and request extraction. You don't know if they're friendly. Then we wait, and the patient dies." Silence. Derran crossed his arms. "What's the objective here? Preserve strategic assets." "Wrong. The objective is to survive with your conscience intact." They stared. Derran reconfigured the sim. The patient now had a comorbid condition, oxygen dependency, and the friendly vessel was delayed. "I'm going in," he said. "Show me how you'd support me." They hesitated again. "I'll improvise, you adapt." The scenario launched. Derran moved through the simulation, requesting med patches, bypassing bulkheads, and rerouting air manually. The candidates scrambled to keep up, one misreading a pressure gauge and nearly venting the entire bay. Another tried to seal the door with a static field and instead shorted 3 circuits. By the end, the patient was stabilized, the station powered down, and the unknown vessel had docked without incident. Derran crouched, panting. "Not bad. You used yourself as bait," said the smallest candidate. "I needed the unknown to reveal its intent. You risked decompression. I trusted you to seal the breach, but we failed twice." "Yeah," Derran said, standing, "and you recalibrated." "That's the point." Later that cycle, he returned to the medical wing, not the Ghalari one, but a converted bay fitted with human equipment. A short woman in a Langley patch was reviewing his vitals. "You've got inflammation in your ankle again," she said. "I was sim running for 3 hours straight. The ligaments aren't healing properly. You need to stay off it." "Not an option." She folded her arms. "You're not on Earth. Nobody's going to give you a medal for limping through a training exercise." He adjusted on the cot. "They're not learning from my strength. They're learning from my weaknesses." "That's poetic and dumb." "Fair." She handed him a compression wrap. "This is designed for low-gravity inflammation. Keep it on for 6 hours. No sim lab, no emergency drills, and no diplomatic showdowns." "I'll try." "You won't." He left limping slightly less. By the next day, the candidates had returned, unprompted. They brought their own scenarios. One integrated a failing reactor with evacuees who refused to leave. Another relied on a decoy made from oxygen tanks and reflective plating. None of them resembled standard Ghalari doctrine. Urien watched from a corner, saying nothing. After the 3rd simulation, he approached Derran. "They are altering their foundational logic." "I did not authorize this. You didn't need to. They will not be accepted by their command corps. They'll be the ones writing the new corps." Urien looked away. "You're afraid they'll lose their identity," Derran said, "but they're not becoming human. They're becoming flexible. And you believe that makes them stronger. No, it makes them survivable." Urien turned to the candidates, who were now arguing over whether a disabled beacon could be weaponized with enough loose metal and a strong enough signal flare. "Then this is what you leave us with." Derran nodded. "This is what you asked for." By the next rotation, the conclave issued a formal directive. Derran's instruction would continue, no longer restricted. No longer quiet. Urien handed him the data slate personally. "You've infected us," he said. "No," Derran replied. "You just stopped resisting." He returned to the training hall one last time, now fitted with human chairs, human consoles, and a new set of protocols that began with a single line: assume nothing. Adapt everything. He sat, ankle elevated this time, and watched as 5 alien officers debated how best to use a broken food dispenser to sabotage a surveillance drone. He didn't speak. He didn't need to.